How cold is it, Jamie? Can't hear.
It's about 80 degrees.
Oh, thanks.
Copies. Copies of the agenda. One's in blue, one's in black and white. Matter?
I'm not sure.
All right.
I had two copies.
All right.
I lost one. Good thing I had.
Good evening and Happy New Year. We'll go ahead and get this town council meeting started for January 6th at 6:01 PM. We have all councilors here with Councilor James Steele on Zoom, and we'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance to the flag, United States Republic, distinction, liberty, justice for all. At this time, I'll open it up for any public comment. Is there anyone in the audience or on Zoom that would like to speak? All right, we'll move on to item 1, consideration of nominations for town council chair.
All right, so I thought I would just mention, I was thinking that maybe if anyone who wants to run for that position, self-nominate and then discuss it and kind of give us a reason why. We should consider them as a candidate and then go from there, but where you guys want.
I'd like to nominate Shannon.
All right, I'll open it for discussion.
Anyone else who wants to self-nominate can. James?
Oh, does Shannon want to be chair again?
I'll be chair again.
Okay, I'll second too. So,
Okay,
All right then.
all right. All in favor? All are in, James, thank you. All are in favor. Item 2, consideration of nominations for town council chair.
sure.
Vice chair, thank you.
Vice Chair. Yep.
I'd probably just soon be vice chair.
Okay.
Give me a chance to follow through on some things that I started, you know, with the public and being open-minded and
I'd like
me
to
a chance.
nominate myself.
pretty much what I've been doing is backing up Shannon.
Okay. Got Andy, we've got James. Are there any seconds?
Second, Jamie.
Okay.
Discuss.
I'll open it for discussion.
I don't know. I'm not going to compete for it. If Jamie wants to be chair, if Roy wants a second, that's fine. I'll only say that in my few short meetings with Zach, I think I'm going to like him. I think he's going to do a good job here, but we need to be careful of the appearance of, you know, with Jamie being in a position of chairmanship with the two of you. That's all. Support Jamie for vice chair. Right. I don't have a problem with it. I'm just saying
Do
we
you
need
really
to
hold
just,
that much power where it's like a, yeah, okay. I didn't think so, so.
Running
Just
meeting.
wanted to state
Oh.
it, so.
in,
That's what
yeah,
I
I mean, in theory, the chair really just organizes the meetings and, you know, so, you know, I just a little thing to be aware of, because we all know there's people around town that if they can make a big deal out of something, they will.
If anyone has a problem with it, they can call me, so.
I don't have a problem with it.
So my only concern, James, so this year I'll be looking to the vice chair to also be coming in and doing some agenda meetings potentially with the town manager. Is that something that you'll be available to do?
Yeah. Occasionally, not every, probably make everyone Shannon, but I will definitely make my best effort to get there every time that you are having something. So
Excellent. Okay. All right. So there was a motion and no second for Wes, for Councilor Wes. There was a motion for Councilor Steele, James, and a second by Councilor Weymouth. All in favor? All are in favor? Thank you. Okay. We'll move on to item 3, discussion of cemetery burial fees updates as proposed by the cemetery committee. And we do have members of the committee here in attendance. Thank you for coming today. We do have these recommendations as follows. For the full burial, it was an increase of $200. The cremation remains for $100. The full burial for $150. Cremation remains for Saturdays, $200, full burial Sunday and holidays, $500, and cremation remains for Sundays and holidays, $300. Are there any questions or comments from the council?
I do have, just, and this is not, I'm just curious, where does the funds from that, does it go to the committee? Does it go to the town? I mean, where do the funds go?
If you guys would come up here and speak into this microphone.
Hi. These funds go to the town's budget. You have a budget segment that you look at budget time that expends money for the mowing
Yep.
and gasoline and things like that. These funds offset those expenses. The other thing that I'll tell you, just if you're interested, is that if somebody buys a lot in the cemetery, those funds go to the cemetery capital fund, which is the fund that the cemetery committee oversees. So that's kind of like when you sell real estate as opposed to when you're selling a service.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
And thank you for coming today. I understand that you're not looking for a decision at this meeting, but just more so providing a recommendation as we move into the budget.
Yeah, so that was at my suggestion. I didn't know if you guys wanted time to mull this over before voting, and so we just put it as a discussion item. Okay.
Can I make a motion? Make a motion to accept these fees as presented.
Right. Marion? So there is a motion to accept the fees as presented with a second. All in favor? All are in favor.
If I may, just in closing,
Yes.
we'll come to you periodically with recommendations pertaining to the cemetery committee. This is not the biggest item that you're called to discuss, but it's important anytime there's money coming to town that's not property tax money. It's a source of income to the town that doesn't rely on property
Right.
taxes for its sources. So, it's worth your consideration. We'll make recommendations to you, knowing that you're the one who'll make the decision. When budget time rolls around again, you'll see us once more to come in and offer a program for next year's work to do some upkeep on maintenance that has been long neglected.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Moving on to item 4, discussion and consideration of proposed changes to Chapter 6 of the Town of Winthrop Personnel Policy. Yes.
Yeah, so that'll be at the next one because those recommendations for those appointments actually come from the chair. So we have to decide a chair first, and then that person may need some time to mull over who will serve on what.
All right. Back to the item. Yeah. So discussion and consideration of proposed changes to Chapter 6 of the Town of Winthrop Personnel Policy, and I do believe that we have those included. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I just had couple things to point out and wanted to mull over, I guess. You want to?
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
So for the first part, I put where we changed some stuff in seniority. I guess some of these are just kind of edits too, with strike designee and stuff like that, clean up some language. And I think Matt had gone over this as well, right?
You did.
And then, but really, I guess the only thing that I wanted to talk about would be the section 4, Motion under C. When an employee does not render satisfactory service after being advised of his or her job performance shortcomings and given ample opportunity to improve his or her performance. I think I just wanted to put in there a little bit more clarity on the process, such as a performance review, performance improvement plan in action, to speak about, kind of where we would go with that, so it's not just left to open interpretation.
Yeah, so every employee should undergo a performance evaluation on an annual basis. And that is something that is addressed elsewhere in the policy, that there is an opportunity to have a performance improvement plan if someone's struggling within their job duties.
Well, wouldn't that be part of the performance after being advised of his and her job performance shortcomings? Wouldn't that be part of the, at that point would be?
So it depends. Potentially, yes, because you could have someone who receives an evaluation, they're doing great, and then all of a sudden, a few months later, they start to have job performance issues, and those are things that a supervisor would be dealing with the employee on a, probably ongoing basis.
And then this is only covering those. that
So
were-
just so you know, Roy, my philosophy is nothing in a job performance evaluation should be a surprise. In other words, if someone's doing great work, they shouldn't hear about it once a year during their performance evaluation. And conversely, if they're struggling in some area of their job, that is something that a supervisor should be working with the employee on an ongoing and regular basis.
I guess in terms of what I'm discussing here, it's going to be used as a tool for demotion, meaning moving someone out of like a supervisory position, moving it back. So I want to be able to have a direct process that we can identify within this if we say we're going to demote an employee. And then also, I was thinking that we should, on Section A, or Section 4, Part A, where it says reduction in force in town personnel due to the town's financial condition, I would like to strike that out completely and just say force reduction at the discretion of the town council. I mean, it does not have to be, on Part A of Section 4. Right now, we have when an employee would be otherwise laid off because his or her position is being abolished because of a lack of work, because of a reduction in force in town personnel due to the town's financial condition. I don't think that needs to be stipulated.
Well, I mean,
It's just that's
budget cuts, yeah. The budget's not funding the position, so.
So you don't want to be able to do it if you decide that it's just not needed. You have to justify it every time that it's a financial issue.
right.
We're not in town because we give a policy. Yeah. So I'm just saying it might come into an issue. That's just putting that out there. It should be something that says
Yeah,
something
so
deemed as.
yes, so the way I'm reading that, Aaron, is that's one of actually 4 reasons why someone might be laid off. It could be because there's lack of work. So in other words, something that's needed at one moment in time isn't needed at some later period in time. Because of a reduction in force due to financial conditions. So if something should collapse with our tax base, for instance, and we needed to make, pretty serious reductions, then that.
Or also just budget, right?
Yes, I mean, yeah, or because of the return to work from authorized leave of absence of another employee. So in my mind, that's not the reason. It's one of 3 potential reasons that someone might be laid off.
At the council discretion, whether a position's deemed necessary or something to that effect. Because if, say, technology comes in, we don't need 3 clerks or, whatever.
Well, that would,
Right.
that would also be because of a reduction in force.
Okay.
Hey, guys. I can't hear
Yes.
Linda when she's talking. I
Oh,
can't hear
Linda,
Linda.
Sorry, I said throughout the budget process, we have the ability to cut any positions we want. We don't have to give reason for that. It's a budget. So if we want to, basically, fund it at a certain level, or if we want to cut positions, we have the ability to do that. We don't have to justify it here. That's the function of the council.
I mean, we have a policy, right, though, and we want to be able to include whatever it is that we would do that would affect.
But I think that's it's a non-issue. I mean, it's given that, you're a municipal, state employee, federal employee. You can get, and it's really like that anywhere you go. They want to cut positions, they want to cut positions. I mean, just.
All right, well, those are my concerns.
Are you looking at adding something to that paragraph?
The job, that's what
Oh.
what you
Due
would
to the
say.
town's financial,
Is that,
rather, I guess, maybe putting in at the town council's discretion.
That would just lay off anybody at that point.
Right.
It isn't really our, that's our town manager's position.
Well, he's not going to get rid of a department or do different things. That would be a function. Or if this also would then say,
Well, this is just
Talking about an employee,
right,
not a
I know
department.
it's not a department. What I'm saying is if we decide to, say the council comes to a
Right.
decision to outs on a situation, or say Anthony says that this position, or the town manager, not Anthony, that says it's no longer warranted, and comes, I think this just things up. I don't think that want to make changes and go over it. And then C, I think, should be more clear.
And how so?
Outlining that, would be based upon a performance review, not just saying shortcomings. And that there's a plan that if we identify shortcomings, that there's a performance improvement plan that's addressed by our administrator, the town manager.
Yeah, go ahead.
Looking at the previous memo, where it says the town has a right, this is a proposed rule change to accelerate the departure of an employee who tenders a resignation regardless of notice of period given. But that sounds to me like you're just encouraging people to walk off the job if they're under threat of
No, so,
canned.
no,
standard in
yeah.
the rest of the world.
So what that does,
Yeah, but I don't have to like it.
It gives you the ability to do that. It
Yes.
doesn't necessarily say that's
Yeah.
how you're gonna do it every time.
so I have faced situations both where I really wanted that employee to stay for the duration of their notice that they've given, whether it be 2 weeks or something else. And there have been instances where I've decided, you know what, it's probably in both of our best interests that this be your last day. And we still go ahead and pay them for their, for their leave that they've given us. But that sometimes it's just best just to cut bait right there.
I guess, if you agreed to pay them, they give you 2 weeks' notice and you're going to pay them out the 2 weeks and tell them they can leave tomorrow, that's fine. But most people that are kind enough to give you notice, that they have plans. They're going to go somewhere else. Their income is going to continue. So, if at the employer's option, you're going to dismiss them, terminate them immediately when they give you notice, you at least have an obligation to pay them for those term of that notice.
Counselor Steele?
Yeah,
James?
I think you've got it correct, Anthony. It's best business practice, especially where it could be a danger to the town that, if they have access to XYZ and they've given their notice, we want to have them, we'll pay them for that notice and then, terminate their ability to have access to certain things. I think that's just best business practice. So I think we're doing it correctly. If somebody in a position that wants to give their 2 weeks notice and they have access to certain files, we don't need them to go in there and muck with them or change them in any way. So that's just my opinion.
I agree. As long as we pay them out if we let them go early.
Oh, yes, yes. We would
That's-
definitely do. If
that's-
someone gave us
Yes.
if someone gave us 2 weeks' notice, for instance, and we decided it was in everybody's best interest that the relationship end that day, we would still pay them for those 2 weeks.
We got past that one in one piece.
Is there any other discussion or questions?
Yeah, there was no section on like termination. Like, I know in like chapter 8, I read through the whole like employee thing. And, like in my handbook, like at my work, like there's a section for termination, like grounds of like rehiring, like certain things you can rehire for, other things you, like if you're terminated, or basically it gives my company the right to not rehire based on like a decision made by like manager or something. I didn't know if we wanted a section in here because there is in chapter 8, I think there was a bunch of termination language.
Yeah, and so I tell you what we can do is, I don't mind adding the language that Aaron has suggested at all. I think, outlining it and talking about performance evaluations and or coaching, depending upon the, sort of what the timing of the shortcoming is probably good. And then doing the same thing. So just so you know, Zach, a lot of that process is outlined in our collective bargaining agreements with positions that are unionized. But perhaps this chapter is the better chapter to include that language.
Change in status was the thing that kind of was like.
Understood.
Termination is a change of status, and we do have the language in the rest of the whole article kind of thing.
Yeah.
I don't know, it's just a thought.
The, on that, what you were just speaking about is for the employee, having, like with Aaron's discussion about the process.
Right.
I think that we should leave it also contingent on the severity of the
Absolutely.
performance, I mean, that still needs to be, if it's a severe issue, severe problem that you're fighting, you need to be able to have more.
Yeah.
You shouldn't have to follow the. Exactly.
So-
That's my. Determining the process to an
So,
extent.
yeah, and so, best practice again is you want due process anytime that you're looking to terminate someone, but some things are so severe and need to be dealt with so swiftly that, let's say we caught someone stealing from the organization. That would be an immediately terminable offense. So,
I'm just saying that.
yeah,
there should
I'll
be
go
some
back and I'll
language.
look at that language in chapter 8, and maybe Zach, I mean, if you've got some good language, you think just from your own personnel policy, I'd be interested in seeing how it's outlined, sort of what rises to the level of either someone being terminated or someone being eligible for rehire or not.
It was more that, because I think the termination's in chapter 8, it's outlined very well. You do this, termination.
Yeah.
That, but I think your change in status, like the rehire, I think it gets foggy.
Okay.
But I'll look, Anthony.
Clarifies it.
Yvonne,
Yeah, and that's outlined in here. Yeah, yeah. Well, I think is there just a one-liner that's like upon termination, rehiring is not an option.
Mhm.
Because it is there on that section.
And would that be something that we would have to clarify within resignations if someone? Okay. Right. Right,
say,
right. Even though we agree to part amicably.
It is outlined in here now.
And as Zach mentioned, I mean, what we could do is, I've already turned over chapters 7, 8, 9, which are the last 3 chapters. I made some proposed changes that I've sent to our directors group. We're going to be discussing those later in the month. So our next meeting, we might be able to bring even more chapters for you guys to consider more in February.
Counselor West?
Yeah, in Article 2 that was shown here, Section 217, it says, "The council shall appoint a town manager for an indefinite term and fix his or her compensation. Manager shall be appointed solely on the basis of his or her executive and administrative ability and qualifications." I am not going to support in any way, shape, or form phrase indefinite term. I think that our current town manager's current contract is 3 years, at what point it will be reviewed, stating that town manager has an indefinite term.
So,
Hate that.
Isn't
so
indefinite.
you're an item ahead of us, Andy. And that's actually in the charter. So whether you support it or not, that's the law of the land in Winthrop.
The next item. Down here, item consideration. We're still on the chapters. All right. Is there any other discussion for chapter 6, the personnel policy? Or any suggested motion? Or any?
So we'll work on it again, bring it back at the first meeting in February. And since, we want to do more workshopping of items at the second meeting of the month. So our next meeting, I'll bring to you chapters 7, 8, and 9 for you guys to consider. Offer your suggestions for that, and then maybe we can bring all 4 of them back to the first meeting in February.
Okay. All right, so we'll move on to item 5, consideration of order 2025-01, appointing Anthony Wilson as our town manager.
No,
Second.
Any discussion? Andy? Good? Right. Any questions, Aaron?
Is this just I might have missed. Is this also where we're talking about the appointment of the assessor and stuff?
So
Is that in this memo?
no. So
That's different.
So that's something that I emailed to you guys, is that in the past, that has been the practice. And there was
You know why it was?
It is in a lot.
Just to get it
isn't
over.
it?
Yeah.
I mean, it was really just.
Okay.
Well,
Know if there was an advantage to it or something?
yeah. And so a question arose as to what about the council appointing a certain employed position. And so I checked with the MMA on that. And the attorney with the MMA said, yeah, the state statute addresses that, but if you have a charter, then the charter supersedes state law. And our charter says that the council appoints one officer, official, that being the town manager. And then the charter specifically says the town manager appoints, all of the other officials in the town.
Any other questions? Good. All right, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor? All are in favor? Thank you. Item 6, consideration of approval of the minutes of the December 2nd and December 16th, 2024 council meetings.
Second.
Okay.
Andy, all in favor? All in favor? Item 7, consideration of recommendations from the Appointments Committee. Turn to
I
Roy.
have 2 recommendations for appointments. They are both renewals. Brent McCarthy to the Planning Board and Michael Levy to the Cemetery Committee.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? All in favor. Thank you. All right, so moving on to other business, I'll open it up for public comment if there's anybody in the audience or online that would like to come to the podium. Not seeing anything online or in the audience, I'll turn to our town manager for the town manager's report.
So we've got an instance up on High Street where someone has been sump pumping their basement and then putting the water out onto the roadway, which this time of year is it's always problematic because that does not help with the integrity of the infrastructure. But it's particularly problematic this time of year because it's a safety issue because water freezes once it gets onto the road. Unfortunately, we don't have any real authority to do anything about that. However, Monmouth has an ordinance that prevents such activity, and they have sent that to me. It's a very simple, like half-page ordinance. And what I'd like to do is bring that to you at the next meeting so that we can hopefully address this issue so that we don't have others doing this very same thing.
Is that where that big ice slab is across the street?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I just drove up there tonight.
Yeah. I sent you guys an email, I think it was last week, just about our budget workshops, because we're soon going to be entering into that season. In fact, our budget worksheets will be going out next week to our department heads to start working on their budgets. And please don't tell him I said this, but Andy actually had a good idea about our budget workshops this year. And that, you know, I asked whether or not, last year we set up some special meetings on some different dates in order to have those workshops. And Andy rightly noted that we created the second meeting of the month in order to workshop issues and said that maybe that's when the budget discussions should happen. I agree with that line of thinking and just wanted to see if that's something that you guys are agreeable to, is dedicating those second meetings to our budget workshops.
I agree with that unless in the event that we need to add more in toward the end of the budget season and.
Absolutely.
Can I just make a suggestion that we start in April, early April, because it gets to the May and we're rushing and everyone's like, I just think we need to take more time with the budget. I mean, you've got significant increases over the last several years and, you know, people are struggling and we really need to make sure that what we're proposing for a budget is, you know, the best we can put forward. And I suggest that we start earlier this year. That's just my thought, because I think we're pushing this stuff through and I just don't like, you know.
I was waiting for Linda to finish. James?
Yeah, I think I would agree with Linda. I'd like to get started early and at least get them reviewing it. And if we could also encourage so the school board to do the same, so we can actually have an accurate review of what that's happening there, because it affects us as well. So I'd like to start early. And to Roy's point, I think if we need to add a few other meetings, which I know we will, we need to be open to that.
So good news, everyone. Our workshops will actually be beginning in March this year. And the very first meeting that we have, our school superintendent will be here to lay out the school budget for you. So they've been working very hard with Nick's help already on their FY26 budget.
We got to count. Is it pertaining to this?
Yeah. Yeah, some of the original impetus between concerning my thoughts of having a second meeting of the month and having it be a workshop was the hope that we could work out some of the things that we spend a lot of time discussing on the first meeting of the month. So by the time we get to the first meeting of the month, the next month, most of the discussion has been done, and we can certainly give the public a chance to comment, but it would cut down on our first meeting, business meeting, if you will, time, because we wouldn't be having so many discussions. That a lot of that would be done during the workshop, which is also public.
Thank you, Andy. Continue.
Okay, so had a really good and interesting meeting with the city of Augusta today. Linda Filer and I went over there to talk about if they could potentially help us with our general assistance applications as it relates to recovery homes. They have a office of 3 full-time employees over there who handle their general assistance, and they are not strangers to recovery home applications. And so they are agreeable to doing that. What they proposed is that they would pay for the assistance. They would get the 70% reimbursement, and then they would bill us for the other 30%. And then there would be a small administrative fee that they would charge. And so they're going to try to calculate how much time they would estimate spending on each application and charge us for that. So I think, frankly, I'm really grateful that they're willing to work with us and help us with that. The only disappointment was they said, yeah, we're willing to help you, but not forever, you know. So, but I do have some ideas about how we might fill that GA vacancy moving forward.
Now, I know we talked to Craig Hickman and to Tavis about potentially doing some legislation around this area about the fact that, has anybody touched base with them?
Yes, so I reached out to Tavis, I believe last week, because I went to search for the bill on the legislature's website, which I just find to be very Byzantine. And I couldn't find it. I emailed Tavis to say, hey, have you filed that yet? And if so, can we get a copy of that? And I haven't yet heard back from him. I did mention to the Augusta GA office today about his intention to file legislation that would remove recovery homes from the GA process, and they were over the moon about that idea. I was talking with the Augusta GA office about Tavis's plans to do that. So they said, please keep us apprised of that because we will support that effort legislatively. And in fact, on Zoom right now, we actually do have Senator Hickman. So I don't know if he might want to weigh in. Senator?
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. The bill has been drafted and it has at least been signed by Representative Hassenfuss and myself. Representative Hassenfuss is the lead sponsor. I'm the lead sponsor in the Senate. I don't know if he is seeking any other bill sponsors, but the bill will be filed. And you won't see it until it is printed and they do the legislative summary that has all the bills that are printed. That should be coming soon because cloture is on Friday.
And cloture being the last day that legislation can be
You have to get
filed.
the bill summary and title in, yeah.
Yeah, it's the last day to get the title in, unless you file a late file bill, but this will certainly be in on time because it's already been drafted, so.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you,
You're welcome.
Senator. Please just keep us apprised. We'd be grateful.
Oh, yes, I'm sure that between the two of us, you will know when the public hearing is. You will know how to submit submit testimony online or in person. We'll make sure that the town's informed.
Thank you, sir.
And
welcome.
just to that note, I think people here ought to be prepared to submit some testimony as well, because you're going to need some support up there. This.
Yeah.
And yeah, exactly.
So one thing I read an article recently that suggested it was actually sort of drawing lessons from the show Ted Lasso that municipal government can use. And one of them was about coaching. And there was a thought in there that elected bodies such as yourself really don't get evaluated in a way that might be helpful to you guys, either through self-evaluation or through, someone else offering some thoughts. And so if you guys are interested in that, I'd be happy to maybe work on an evaluation of sort of my experience with this group and what I see are your strengths and maybe some areas that could be worked on. Or if you want to just do that amongst yourself, I think that would be a healthy exercise. You're talking about performance evaluation earlier. I think it'd be a healthy exercise.
One more thing about the legislation is when is MMA's policy committee? Do you know when they're meeting?
Well, I mean, we've already submitted all of our legislation, and I emailed you guys about that. I think there was somewhere in the neighborhood of maybe like 9 or so different bills that we were sponsoring, and they mostly fall under the umbrella of property tax relief. So that's going to be the main focus and push from the MMA's legislative team this year.
The reason why I'm asking is they need to be apprised of this and they need to be testifying in favor of this bill. In my opinion, they need to bring it before their policy committee because any one of these towns out there can be subject to this, and they need, in my opinion, we're paying to be members of them and we need their support on this bill. So they should be right there in Augusta and testify.
I feel certain that they will. I mean, one of the bills that they are proposing would, again, increase the reimbursement from GA to 90%. I made them aware of Tavis's bill, and I'm going to take it upon myself to try to rally some support among other town managers to submit testimony, either written or in person. So, and certainly when this comes before the, I guess it'd be the probably Health and Human Services Committee, I will certainly be there to testify before the legislature. And then lastly, I will be out of the office tomorrow afternoon and Wednesday, but if you need me, I'm available via my phone. That's my report.
Anything from any of the counselors? No? All right, I think we will close the public portion of our meeting at this time.
I move that we move into executive session pursuant to 1 MRSA, Section 4056D, labor negotiations.
Second.
All in favor? All in favor, thank you. So we will open that at 6:41 and say thank you to everybody for your attendance this evening.